Deadlock is a MOBA shooter with multiple facets that you'll need to understand in order to play it better. In this video, we're going to cover the shop and how the items impact your character, how to use active items, and how to build your character depending on the abilities they have and the kind of gameplay that you're looking for. There are 3 different types of items in Deadlock. You've got weapon, vitality, and spirit items. Each of these items provide your character with stats. In this case, we're looking at the basic magazine. You can see that it has 26% more ammo for your character, as well as 12% more weapon damage. As a 500 soul orange item, it also provides you with 6% more weapon damage. The more expensive an item is in this game, the higher the base stat that it provides. So the 1250s are going to provide more weapon damage than the 500s, the 3000s provide more weapon damage than the 1250s, and the 6000 will provide the highest amount of weapon damage. This goes for green and purple as well, but instead of weapon damage, vitality items will provide you with base health, and the purple items are going to provide you with spirit. The simplest way that I can explain that these stats will affect your character, so weapon damage, vitality, or base health and spirit, is weapon damage. That is going to be the damage that your bullets do. It is the damage that your melee attacks do. Vitality is the amount of health you have, so the amount of damage you can take, and spirit is the amount of damage that your abilities are going to do. And these different items impact them in different ways. Each item has its own description, and they typically have their own place in the game and their own value for each different character. One of the things that makes Deadlock unique is that all characters use all of the stats. So each character benefits from spirit power, each character benefits from weapon damage, and each character benefits from vitality. There are no clear roles in the game, but there are obviously some characters that lean more towards certain stats or certain play styles. But you can pretty much do anything you want with any character, and if you really want to, the right items are going to change them. There are some differences in base stats that we'll cover in a different video, but that's one of the great things about this game. So to understand how items affect your character, we've got to probably have a quick understanding of what your character is. So each character has 4 abilities, okay? And they have a series of stats. Now, the easiest way to check on your stats, I hold tab, I hold mouse over my character here. So you've got your health regen. Max health is the total amount of health that you've got. All vitality items increase your max health by increasing your base health. All right, then health regen. That's the amount of health I regenerate. I think it's per second in this game. If we take a little bit of damage, we can have a look here. All right, taking a little bit of damage. We come out here, we've got 2. It looks about right per second. All right, DPS, that's the amount of damage that you do per second. Bullet damage is the amount of damage each bullet does. Your light melee damage and your heavy melee damage. A light melee is when you tap Q, 63 damage. When you hold Q, you're going to power up and punch, you do 116 damage, okay? Bullet resist, this is a percentage reduction in the amount of damage you take from bullets and I believe melee. Spirit resist is the same thing but for ability damage, spirit damage. Bullet shield is an amount of shield that you have to protect you from bullet damage, okay? It basically acts like health, except it's going to regenerate after a cooldown. So when the shield is broken, it's going to regenerate after a certain amount of time, and it regenerates quite quickly once it hits that cooldown. All right, you can increase this with items. I don't think anyone has one to begin with. The same for spirit shield, except for spirit damage. Bullet lifesteal is a percentage amount. I'm not sure why it has a number here instead of a percentage, but it should both be percentages. That's the amount of health you gain from your bullet damage. Is typically a percentage. The same with spirit lifesteal on your abilities. Move speed is how fast you move, 6.8 meters a second, pretty quick. Sprint speed is how much faster you move when you're sprinting. Stamina is the amount of stamina you have. You use stamina to do your dashes, to do your double jump, and to do your dash jumps. So you need 2 stamina to do a dash jump. Typically it's shift and then space. You have to time it right, so shift and then space, like that. All right. Heal amp is an increase to the amount of healing that you receive. All right, you've got your light melee damage. We've gone over that. Fire rate is the percentage increase of speed. Ammo is the amount of bullets you have in your magazine. Spirit power is the bonus spirit, basically, and it'll increase your abilities. We'll go over that in a sec. Ability cooldown, range, and duration are all affect, so that they affect the percentages of those things. So the cooldown of your ability is how long it takes for the ability to come back once you've used it. Range is how far it can go, basically, or how wide the AoE will be. Duration is how long it lasts. All right. After that, we'll just have a quick look here as well. So Spirit impacts this ability, for example. The highlighted parts in purple with where the details are, that's where you see the damage and the stomp range. So both the damage of this ability and the stomp range are increased by my Spirit. The damage, as you can see, is... So Dynamo now gets 1.8 damage on his stomp per Spirit you have. So 1 point of Spirit is 1.8 damage. The stomp range, so how far that stomp goes, is increased. So its meters increases by 0.3 per Spirit. So every 3 Spirit, roughly, you're going to get an extra meter. The ability width, it's 5 meters. So if I want to increase that, I would need to get something that increases the reach. Now, one of the great things about this game, when you mouse over an item in the shop, it's going to tell you what it modifies. It's not a true example because there are a few things that change. For example, I don't think it takes into account the raw spirit power that I'll be getting. That's also going to increase. So it says stomp range is going to go from 15 meters to 18.5 meters. If I buy Mystic Reach, though, it's going to increase my spirit, and it still says 18.5 meters. All right, that's great. But if I go to Mystic Vulnerability, for some reason, this won't actually show that it's going to increase the range. But if I buy it, we've gone from 15 to 17.2 meters. So it's good to keep in mind, sometimes that number is not going to reveal exactly how much it's going to impact your abilities. All right? And it's good to just be aware of how your abilities are impacted because of that. So when you're in the shop, you have 4 tabs, okay, and the search function. You have the builds tab. So if you've selected a build, which you do through browsing builds, this is where it's going to show you all of the items for your build, as well as the descriptions that the person who's created the build has made. This is my build for Dynamo. It's called Slammin'. All right. Basically, it just explains, and I've put them in the order so they appear similar to in the shop. The weapon's going to show you the different items in here. All right. Vitality is going to show you the different items for Vitality. Spirit's going to show you the Spirit items. So now you've got a basic understanding of what your stats are and how your items are going to impact your abilities. Okay, weapon is going to impact you in different ways as well. You can increase your ammo, so you get to shoot more. You have 26% more ammo, and the game's going to show you that means you're going to get 5 more bullets if you're Dynamo, starting on your 18. It's also going to give you 12% more weapon damage, totaling 18%. So it shows you the total calculation there, and you go from 65 light melee damage to 69 light melee damage, from 12.4 bullet damage to 13.8 bullet damage. Okay, that actually makes a big difference. It's interesting that it says 12.4, but that's not actually the amount that it shows in my character, okay? This is important to keep in mind. These things are not... It can be confusing. It's not consistent all the time. Each character has a different play style, all right? Those different play styles are going to impact what kind of items you want to get. My Slammin' build for Dynamo plays him as a melee kind of fighter. So you're going to be up in combat. You're going to be up in the enemy's face. You're going to be using your kinetic pulse to knock them up and to disrupt them, as well as do damage. And then you're going to be looking to hit melee punches where you can to do the extra burst. At the moment, we don't have a whole lot of melee damage. We're doing 63 light melee, 116 heavy melee. So that's going to take 7 punches to kill another Dynamo, for example. So what we want to look at is what are we going to do that? We've got 100 damage on our kinetic pulse. So technically, if I'm going to spawn in another Dynamo here. All right, so we've got our enemy Dynamo. All right, I'm going to hit him with a kinetic pulse. It's not doing a lot. We've got the heavy melee as well. Look, at the start of the game, that's not a whole lot of damage to be doing. It's good, but when you can shoot them for the same amount from a safe distance and get that, it's a bit, it's hard to see the value in it. It does take a little bit. So the first item I've suggested for this build, for example, is Extra Charge. Extra Charge gives you cooldown reduction for charged abilities, and that's what Kinetic Pulse is. That's what this little bar is here. It means it's a charged ability, all right? It gives you a bonus ability charge. You're going to be able to use it 10% more often, okay? And it gives you some bonus weapon damage as well as the base spirit power for a 500 cost spirit item. So that means we're getting a small bonus to bullet damage, a small bonus to our light and heavy melee. We're getting a massive bonus to our main ability, which is the Kinetic Pulse, an extra use, you know, it's an extra charge, and we're getting 3 seconds taken off the cooldown. It also is going to increase the range by 1 meter. So that means you can use it a little bit further away before you go into slam, to punch. All right, the second item I've got here now, honestly, you can kind of choose between them, all right? The strikes are great. Melee Lifesteal and Spirit Strike. So Melee Lifesteal is going to give you bonus damage. It's also going to give you a decent amount of healing for hitting another player. Now, that's 18% of the melee damage plus 90. That heal... Excuse me. So 18% of our heavy melee attack. The heavy melee is just a little bit under double the light melee. Early on, a heavy melee attack, 18% of that is not going to be a huge amount more. So if we light melee here, we just healed for 103. Gonna wait for it to come off cooldown. I'm gonna get these guys to take my health down a little bit again. A heavy melee is 114. You don't need to stress about it. Our melee lifesteal is gonna give us a significant heal. You don't need a heavy punch to make it valuable. You're only getting an extra 10 health. All right, early game at least. You know, I'm trying to get back a bit of health. To get 100 health back, you know, that's a huge portion of my health just by one light melee, and that's pretty much guaranteed if you get the stomp. All right, we're going to have a look at some more of our abilities. So here we have Spirit Strike. That gives me 12% more melee damage. That's 8 more damage on my light melee attack and an extra 10 damage, or 14 damage actually, on the heavy melee attack. I find this really useful. It's also going to give you 53 spirit damage, as well as reducing the spirit resist of your opponents for 11 seconds on an 8-second cooldown. That is a lot. And you can keep it on your enemies for basically forever, right? But now that we've got this bonus damage, you know, I'm going to sell Spirit Strike. So a light melee attack doing 73. While it's off cooldown, we're going to wait for a healing item to come off cooldown as well. My light attack is doing 81 as well as 53 bonus. That is fantastic. That's a huge bonus to our damage, okay? Oops, I did not mean to do that. We'll just remove him real quick. And then if you take Mystic Burst, so if you do 80 damage or more in a single hit with an ability, it's going to do 35 bonus damage. Doesn't seem that great, but it's also giving us 6% more weapon damage and plus 4 spirit power. More weapon damage is great. It's going to improve our melee attacks, all right? And at that point, you're starting to see a bigger difference, you know, in the light and heavy melee. We're going up to 51 damage on the heavy melee attack, and it's getting 3 damage instead of the 1 that light melee does. It's giving us a spirit shield, okay, and that's going to make us take a little bit less damage from other people's abilities, especially small abilities that aren't doing a lot. You know, sometimes you'll get hit by a Infernus and you'll get set on fire. That's going to help you cover some of that damage. Early game, it's going to be a fair bit, like 40 damage from that, being reduced from that, means you're going to have a bit more survivability. We're going to take that. Now, if you are keen-eyed, you might have noticed that my spirit damage on my Spirit Strike also went up, okay? From 53 to 55. Is it a massive deal? No. But it's a decent amount. We're going to pop that, and you see, that did 179 damage. That's a lot more damage than we were looking at before. We're now looking at hurting this guy a fair bit more, all right? Now, the last thing I have on my 500 is close quarters. Close quarters only says plus 4% bullet resist. So I'm taking 4% less damage from bullets. Okay. It gives me the 6% weapon damage that a 500 weapon item gives. But when I'm in close range to my target, I'm going to do 22% more weapon damage. Okay. So 82 damage on my punch there.
Your enemies will
okay. 91. That's 10 more light melee damage just from close quarters. That's a huge increase, all right? If we're looking at a full health guy, a heavy melee is going to do 168. Without it, 151. Honestly, I'm seeing these light melee attacks, and I didn't realize they're actually so good. I might even start using them a hell of a lot more. Because, you know, I'm doing... In that amount of time, I've taken out that much health. This is much slower. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Okay, we'll move on. After that, I've put heavy melee charge, on here. That's for the extra distance and to allow you to get the free reloads. You'll also do 20% more bonus heavy melee damage. Okay, so we're doing 98 with that. Without the heavy melee, or the melee charge, sorry, 168 damage. With it,
someone's looking to make a statement.
215. That's where you start to see the big difference. The only problem with doing heavy melee attacks is that you're so much more open to a parry, okay? So being able to do this as opposed to that can make a big difference. Now, I like these barriers, okay? Enchanter's Barrier, that gives me plus 20 shield, Spirit Shield. Sorry, Enchanter's Barrier gives you 300 Spirit Shield health. That's that shield that's going to come back. Alright? But it also gives you, while you are shielded with Spirit Shield, you're going to get 20 more Spirit Power as well as 6% cooldown reduction while shielded. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it makes a difference. You're also going to gain 14% base health because this is a green item, a 1250 green item. Combat Barrier is very similar. It actually gives a little bit more bullet shield health, sorry. While you have a bullet shield, you get weapon damage and fire rate. Really, really great items, both of these. I don't have it in this build because you pretty much won't get to it, but you can also combine them with Veil Walker, so you get that 22-second cooldown on an instant recharge of your shields. It's a fantastic item. It's completely underrated. All right, go back to our build. So, if we have a look at this, now, our Spirit Strike, it says 55, but I don't think it's 55. I think that's actually, yeah, it's up to 62 now. So some of these things aren't actually showing you the right details. It makes a difference, and the Stomp is doing... Did that even show? Like, let's have a look here. 192, all right? It says it's 122. Let's have a look. Oh, I don't have. All right. So, I don't really want to do that, actually, now that I think about it, because then it's just going to... Improve cooldowns on here, but I haven't been using it. It gives ammo, it gives Spirit Shield health, it gives you some regen, it's great, and the cooldown reduction is undoubtedly amazing. That cooldown reduction, it's going to affect both your abilities and your item cooldowns, okay? It's fantastic. Do I want to use it in this build, though? I don't think so. I love Berserker. So this one here is great if you're going in. It's great for these characters that have lower ammo amounts to start with. 18 ammo, it gives a base ammo increase, right? Plus 4 ammo. So we're going from 18 to 22. That's a lot, right? And when you upgrade it, it gives even more, but it's going to make your other items that give percentages or percentage increases to your ammo even more beneficial as well. Okay, so you've got a rough idea of how these items are impacting your character now. We'll have a look here. So Fortitude is great. It has a passive bonus where you're going to regenerate health at 4% max health regen if you haven't taken damage for 10 seconds. All right, and it's got another passive that also impacts that, 27% more weapon damage and plus 2 meters a second move speed when you're above 75% health. Great for roaming, great for doing that extra bullet, extra melee damage, you know. It really can make a big difference to you. 118 on that, and 216 with our heavy hit. Alright, so now we've covered how items impact your character, a little bit about building your character. Now we're going to have a look at your active items. I don't use a huge amount, but one of my favorites is Alchemical Fire. So, you're limited in each game to having 4 active items maximum. In this build, I like to get Alchemical Fire. Alchemical Fire is an item that it is a 3,000 soul weapon item. It's going to give you 14% more weapon damage. It's going to give you another 14% more weapon damage in its text. It's going to give you bullet shield health. It's going to give you spirit power. It's going to give you sprint speed. But it's also going to give you an active ability that lets, with a 28-second cooldown, it's going to throw a flask that explodes on contact, creating an area that deals spirit damage per second and causes enemies to receive additional weapon damage from your team. It's great to throw down. If you're a melee build, you throw it on the ground, they're going to take damage per second, and you're also going to do 40% more weapon damage. That means you're really punching these guys to death. Obviously, they're going to be over level 1, typically, if you're at that level, but it's a fun item. You can also use it to just drop weapon or drop spirit damage on some minions and keep moving to help your team with something else. All right, we have another active item. Same premise. We're going to choose where to put it. I recommend with your active items, I recommend rebinding these 2 keys. You don't want all of your fingers to have to come down to the ZX, C, and V buttons that are the defaults when you use WASD to move. All right, I feel like probably C and V are probably easier to use, but I use Z and X still. I use Z for mobility, so I'm holding W. I typically will put Fleet Foot on that. It's a great item. Echo Shard I put on my mouse 5. All right. Fleet Foot is going to give you the ability to not only slide more, which is that slide distance, but you no longer have a move speed penalty when you're shooting. So normally when you shoot, your character slows down. You can use it to increase your move speed and give yourself temporary ammo. I actually didn't even realize it gave temporary ammo. That's even better. And then Echo Shard is another type of active item. Now this one allows you to reset the cooldown on one of your abilities, one of your first 3 abilities, so 1, 2, or 3, every 21 seconds. Non-ultimate. Your ultimate ability is your 4th ability. All right, it'll be a bit overpowered. There is an item that allows you to refresh the cooldown on your ultimate ability as well as your other abilities. That's a refresher. That's another active item. All right, it's at the end of this build. It's really good. It's probably something that could be incorporated. These are not in a particular order, but I personally like Echo Shard first. Sometimes I'll get Mystic Reverb, not an active item. The other active items you need to keep an eye out for that are really helpful. Ethereal Shift. This one allows you to basically become untargetable and invincible for a short duration. If you're being targeted by ultimates, it's a fantastic way to avoid them. If your enemy team is focusing you hard, it's a great way to avoid death. Knockdown is a great way to stun someone who's using an ultimate. You've got Seven's big channeled ultimate. You've got people like Vindicta or Great Talon that fly around. Knockdown is a good way to get them out of the sky and to get them to drop. You know, and as you can see here, the stun lasts longer on airborne targets depending on how high they are. Silence Glyph. You get to shoot a projectile that silences and damages the first enemy hero it hits. The silence does not interrupt channeling abilities, so you can't use this to stop a Haze ult, you can't use this to stop a 7 ult, but you can use it on a Yamato, for example, to stop them from going into their ultimate and trying to survive a fight that they normally would save their ultimate for. Some other good ones to keep in mind are the Return Fire, which basically gives you some more bullet resist, and then you return damage to your attackers. I don't use this one very much myself, probably to my detriment. Healing Right is a cheap item that allows you to get a 370 health heal while still in your lane. It's on a 64-second cooldown that you can obviously bring down. You can also upgrade it into Healing Nova, which is a 260 health regen, and it heals an additional amount per ally that it heals. Okay, it takes 2.8 seconds to heal them 260 health. So it's a really big healing aura that goes around you. Divine Barrier, that's another supporting item. You're going to give your target bullet and spirit shield and move speed, and you can self-cast it. You know, great if you want to combine that with your combat and enchanter's barriers. Okay, the buff lasts for 5 seconds. I'm not sure if that actually works to recharge your shields if you have lost them. Debuff Remover. This is an upgrade from Debuff Reducer. It's a great way to start countering characters like Shiv, like Pocket, like Infernus with the debuffs that they put on you, and they're going to remove the damage. You have an active item that allows you to fly through the air. That's Majestic Leap, and you've got active items that allow you to become immune to bullets, for example, reducing your dash distance and all that, and other things as well. You've got Phantom Strike that's going to let you teleport to an enemy, disarming them and slowing them. Unstoppable, which makes you immune to status effects like Stun, Silence, Sleep, Root, and Disarm. Really good to use these if you're finding it hard to do certain things like getting your ult off, if you're Haze, that kind of thing. So, finally, we're going to talk about building your character for success. First of all, to find your builds, you press B, go into your shop, browse the builds, come over to public, search for slamming under Dynamo's builds. All right. Once you've got it, we can exit browse. In the early game, you want to have sustain. The main point of being there is to get those last hits. So you want to build things that are going to work for your character, for your playstyle. I recommend having some sort of healing item. Extra Charge is going to give you more abilities. Okay, Mystic Burst is going to improve the damage of your charged ability as well, because it does a lot of damage. Your Spirit Strike, your melee lifesteal, they're going to give you more value out of close range, and close quarters is a great, slightly defensive item, but it's going to improve the damage of your melee considerably. For our 1200 items, right, we've got things like Melee Charge. Now, originally, heavy melee was what I was using this for. It gives you more damage, it gives you the bonus ammo. You don't really need to. I tend to be skipping over it. I'm looking at Enchanter's Barrier. That's giving me health, or it's giving me defensive strength. And it's also buffing me while I've got that strength. Once that barrier's gone and I start losing health, it's time to pull back. Same with Combat Barrier. Great items. They really round off that damage you take early game. Okay, improved cooldown. It has regen. It has a lot of good things about it. And the cooldown reduction as well as Spirit Power. It's really improving the synergy. It's all working together to give you more opportunities to do kinetic pulse, to slow down your enemies, and to open up the opportunity to get kills, whether you're getting the kills by hitting them because you do a lot of damage, or whether your teammates are getting those kills and getting fed, they're getting money or souls. Fleetfoot, a fantastic item to make sure that not only are you not slowed down when you're shooting, you can slide further, and you can do little speed boosts every 20 seconds. It helps you move around the map. It helps you react to objectives often. This is a staple for most characters for me. I love this item. All right, Soul Shredder Bullets is okay. This one is when you're shooting them, you're going to put a debuff on them that gives you Spirit Lifesteal and Spirit Amp against them, so 8% more damage on your stomp. It's okay. This is something I use if I can't go in. If I'm not able to do the melee side of this build, this is what I'll be taking, something like this. All right. Now, these barriers, one of the amazing things about them is they work really well with Fortitude. Fortitude is a fantastic item. You're going from 650 base health from the start up to 1,160. That's 510 health, right? That's a lot. That's almost doubling your health. You're going to regenerate your health more often, meaning you can run between fights. You don't need to go back. You can continue to take those lanes. You can stand back. You can shoot the minions, all right? And you're going to have bonus damage when you're above 75% health. That bonus damage is going to translate directly into your melee hits, and it's going to do a lot of damage. You get more movement. You're going to be moving around the map faster. You're going to be able to get to those objectives faster, all right? And you'll be able to get away from a lot of enemies as well. Spellslinger Headshots is a circumstantial item. You're not really going to take it unless you're already getting Soul Shredder Bullets, right? It's the upgrade from that. Something I haven't really mentioned is weapon upgrades. You can see here this little icon on Spellslinger Headshots. That's the item that was required before it. You can also see it under components up here in the title of, well, under the title of Spellslinger Headshots. It says Soul Shredder Bullets is the component. All right. At the moment, items only really have one component. If I go to Soul Shredder Bullets, I can see that it's a component of Spellslinger Headshots down the bottom. Most components tend to be in the same category as their upgrade items at the moment. All right, but there are a couple of exceptions. So the exceptions that we're talking about, we've got Arcane Surge. Its component is Kinetic Dash. That is a weapon item that transfers over to a spirit item. So you've got to take that into account when you're making your builds and when you're thinking about how many slots you have left. Slowing Hex is another one of these. Its component is Enduring Spirit, an early game item that you can take from Vitality, and it upgrades into a spirit item. We'll go back to the build. When I focus on a particular ability, especially someone like Dynamo, someone like Bebop, there are a few items that are really core to getting value out of those abilities, right? So Surge of Power is a standalone item, 3,000 souls. It's going to imbue an ability with permanent spirit power, okay? It does have a passive 10.5 second cooldown ability, but don't be fooled. The ability always has the bonus spirit power. So that's 34 bonus spirit power plus the 12 spirit power that it gives you as a spirit item. That's huge. That's 46 spirit power. It really ups the damage. It says the damage from Stomp is going from 100 to 122. If we look at this 100, if I take Surge of Power and I put it on Kinetic Pulse, right, it's 183. We're close to doubling the damage on Kinetic Pulse with Surge of Power, okay? And again, Improved Burst. So there's a big difference here between Mystic Burst and Improved Burst. Mystic Burst is the component for Improved Burst, so you can't have them both at the same time. But Mystic Burst does 35 bonus damage every 6.25 seconds, 6.25 seconds. It's going to do that to the first thing that's hit by the ability that's doing this damage. Improved Burst is very different. Improved Burst says that your abilities that deal bonus spirit damage if they do 175 damage or more in a single hit, and targets are immune to the effects of Improved Burst for 5 seconds after taking damage from it. If you have an ability doing 176 damage or 175 damage to a target or to an entire wave, for example, they're all going to take the 8% max health bonus damage. Really, really useful every 5 seconds. Dynamo's cooldown or his Kinetic Pulse is 5 seconds. It's a huge benefit to have this, even when you do take this rapid recharge item and get the faster cooldown between them. Unless you're spamming it constantly, you're pretty much going to get Improved Burst on every single hit. So Improved Burst, by the time you're buying this, you're definitely doing 175 or more damage with your Kinetic Pulse. It's really valuable to take. I take it a lot. Plus, the Spirit Shield health, it helps, you know, weapon damage. If you're getting the opportunity for melee, it's great to have there. Rapid Recharge. Again, it's an upgrade on the extra charge item. You get 2 bonus ability charges. You get 45% faster time between the charges. So instead of it being 5 seconds, it's going to be like 3 seconds, right? 3 seconds, right? Okay. 25% cooldown reduction for charged abilities. Now, that means, plus, it says it right there, 2.8 seconds charge delay. Up to 3 charges before you put the third upgrade on Kinetic Pulse, getting that extra charge and damage. You'll find yourself using the Stomp a lot more often and in a lot of fights. And then if you've got your improved cooldown and its upgrade, you can refresh the charges more often as well. But, you know, improved cooldown's 14% cooldown reduction. This is 25%, so it's a big deal. You know, you're going down under 20-second cooldown for the charges. Okay, so that's how I work that out. And these items are pretty standard for any spirit damage dealing character. You know, you've got Bebop who does a big bomb. These are both great items for him as well. Bebop's got great scaling on his bomb. The upgraded version of Life Strike, it's going to give you 35% more melee damage. That's huge. Okay, so considering we're already looking at Fortitude thinking this is going to be a good item to just keep you alive, it works even better to have Life Strike. You're going to have more damage, so 35% melee damage plus 27% damage when you're above a certain amount of health. We're really looking at pumping up the jam. Point Blank is an upgrade of Close Quarters. Okay, Again, when you're in close range, you're doing 45% more weapon damage. These things are going to keep stacking up to a point where you're doing 63 damage with a light hit.
If you need more protection,
All three of those items, you're doing 113. You're doubling your damage, essentially. You know, and that's with a light strike. Spirit Snatch, another 15% melee damage. Now, the great thing about Spirit Snatch on Dynamo is, not only are you going to do a little bit of extra spirit damage, you're also going to have Spirit Resist Steal. So you're stealing Spirit Resist from your enemy. Their loss is your gain, and you're going to steal Spirit Power from them as well. Stealing their Spirit Power and Spirit Resist means that your next stomp is going to do more damage to them, because you're going to have some of their resist, and you're going to be having some of their power. It's a great synergy item, so it complements the fact that you're already in the fight. It complements the fact that you're doing big damage with your Kinetic Pulse. We talked about the active item Alchemical Fire earlier. Again, really great. It gives you some spirit power. It gives you weapon damage. It's putting down a layer of fire, so a control zone basically. All right. That control zone gives you 40% more weapon damage. That's another large spike to your melee and to your teammates' damage as well. Every character has bullet damage, so 40% more of it, or the enemy taking 40% more. That's highly valuable. Okay, we look at all of those and we think that's how I start to figure this out. You know, you've got a lot of items to choose from. It can be overwhelming. Don't be afraid to come into the sandbox and have a look at some of these. Consider what you're trying to do with your character. Don't forget that while it's important to build for team fights, don't forget that the goal is to destroy the other team's patron. You still need to destroy that. So it's okay to also take some more bullet items if you're going to be shooting objectives. Objectives have more spirit resist now, so, you know, it's okay. All the 6,000 cost items are very strong. What I've chosen here, Echo Shard, this item's really good if you can get it early. Just maybe you get a few lucky kills and you've got a bit more money. It's going to let you refresh an ability, one of your 3 abilities, and you using those more often can really make a big difference in a fight. You know, sometimes having that extra quantum entanglement means you can teleport yourself and your allies out of a fight that you might have lost otherwise. You can get an extra healing aura, and when that's maxed out, you can pop that and you can run with it. You can really run. And one of the beautiful things about Dynamo is before you've maxed out your healing aura, while you're still casting it, you can still dodge, okay? You can still punch, all right? Another great example of why we want to go punching with this guy. He has bonuses for punching. They want you to be punching with him. We've talked about Echo Shard and how it works. Mystic Reverb. This item is not as valuable as some of the other ones in this build, but what Mystic Reverb gives you is Spirit Lifesteal, Spirit Resist, and Ability Range. The other thing that it does, and this is if you've already snowballed, you're doing a lot of damage, you're finding that you're able to connect your kinetic pulses often, the first enemy that it hits is going to get a debuff on them. It's going to slow them by 40% for, I think, 3 seconds, okay? And then they're going to take 50% of that damage, and everything in the radius around them is going to take 50% of the damage after 3 seconds. So, but, you know, the slow really helps. The slow plus that bonus damage, you'll end up finding yourself stopping enemies even longer. We'll talk about Boundless Spirit now. This item has a ridiculous amount of spirit power. It gives you some other bonuses as well, including 30% weapon damage. It is gigantic. You're going from 113 damage on Kinetic Pulse up to 258 with a 39 meter stomp range. Ridiculous. And you know, you don't have to go straight for Boundless Spirit. You can take Extra Spirit to start with. It's going to improve the range by 5 meters. You can take Improved Spirit midway through the match. You're going to go up to 28 meters before you get to Boundless Spirit. But the jump in Spirit is quite substantial. It's almost double. And the 30% weapon damage as well, you're going to be doing a lot more with your melee hits when you're in the fight. Spiritual Overflow, this is a little bit circumstantial. I haven't bought this for a long time, and I haven't bought it once, I think, on Dynamo. It gives you a buff when you're shooting. When you've shot an enemy, I think 4 times roughly, you're going to get 50 spirit power. It can do a little bit, and like that's a lot of spirit. Frenzy is a fun item for melee characters. When you're below 50% health, you're going to get 50% bullet resist, you're going to get bonus fire rate and move speed. You're also going to increase your weapon damage as you take sustained damage. If you're in the fight, if you're a melee character, or if you're even just a frontline character of any sort, stack up quickly, it becomes 70%, 120 damage taken to stack it, and by the time you're there, like, you'll be able to take that much. Siphon bullets, also haven't bought it since I created this build. They're expensive items, you don't get there. Refresher I have taken, I like the resist on it. It also resets everything, right? All of your abilities and all of the charges. This is how I built for success. I'm doing well as Dynamo. I tend to be winning my games. I think my win rate has improved since I developed this build, and I've stuck to it ever since the change with the improved kinetic pulse. We want to see people being able to use the opportunities that you're creating. We want to feel strong. We want to feel like we're doing nice damage with the Storm. Hit enemies, fire rate and movement slowed by 35% for 4 seconds. There's a slow in build after the first level. With the second level, Dynamo deals 30% more weapon damage to hit enemies for 8 seconds. That means 30% more melee damage. It's gigantic. And the final one, 125 more damage and 1 charge. It really just comes together. It's a beautiful ability to build a melee build around. Highly recommend. Your ultimate, also a really fantastic ability. You'll find yourself, if you're already in a fight and you can survive long enough, pop your ult, you can drag a few people in, and hopefully if your teammates are working around you, you're going to end up with a couple of deaths on the enemy team from that. And you'll be able to swipe at people, take a couple of hits and use your kinetic pulse, following it up, and you're going to do a lot of damage. This is how I build Dynamo for success. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Please, let me know what you would change about the build. There's a lot of things on here I haven't picked up on. And there are a lot of things for me still to learn. I would love to hear your thoughts on who I should show a build for next. I have a lot of success on my Bebop build. I have played a lot of Infernus, though I wouldn't say that my build to him is particularly amazing, and I think that I could really take another look at building Infernus. But yeah, let me know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate all the support I've been getting recently. I'll see you in the next one.